The crypto market is technically going sideways, but things are really heating up. The US president may be finding a way to help make Jerome Powell, chairman of the Federal Reserve, retire early or resign. There is massive pressure going that direction. And so they could possibly appoint someone who would bring down rates to much, much lower levels than they are. That would do very, very interesting things to crypto and other investment assets. Additionally, the US Congress is pushing new regulations that will bring in massive money into crypto. You may not feel it yet, but the right roads are being built for a massive run-up. Let's talk about it today. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel in our family. If you, like me, came into crypto because you realize there is massive potential here for real life-changing gains, but realistically over a greater 4 to 8 year period, and you're looking for discussions on becoming a solid, unshakable, savage crypto investor, like a Navy SEAL of crypto investing, you're in exactly the right place. Now, I was once new to the crypto space myself 8 years ago, and I was really excited because I was like, this technology is going to change the world. Not just what blockchain and crypto has done for Bitcoin, but some further technologies being developed that will allow the internet to do things it couldn't do before. And I was so excited, I thought everyone here is going to make so much money. But I didn't know at that time that incentives were a little bit misaligned for what you're learning in YouTube and Twitter. Because if you want to grow a huge YouTube channel, you talk about things that are already high. And if you're overly optimistic for a while, they'll go much higher. You will get a lot of followers. You'll get a lot of views on your video. People watch till the end because they'll be excited. And you will probably absolutely devastate and wreck your audience. And that if you share with them how to really do well at this, well, your videos won't play well with the algorithm because the incentives were all wrong. But myself, I was hungry for analysis on cryptos that were underpriced and undervalued. And I wasn't finding that on YouTube. I wasn't finding that. Even I did some of the paid groups and they weren't really good. So I created a channel where we discuss crypto as an investment and discuss the most important things like the overall 4-year investment cycle that crypto goes through. Projects, the specific pros and cons of those projects, the risks of those projects, which is a very important part of analyzing anything. And then the guesses at the upside and what it might be if it comes together well. So if you're looking for those deeper discussions, well, you're in the right place. If you're looking for even deeper discussions than that and joining the Rainmaker family, join our private Patreon group that allows you access to our Rainmaker private Discord. In our Rainmaker private Discord, this is where the best discussions and the best info is. There are other benefits too that come around, but you will have to join us to find out. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul, who is joining us from Definity, who has 30 years price trading experience, he's not your financial advisor either. So go ahead and make it rain on that like button. Strap in for the show. These are exciting times. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Oh, pleasure to be here as always. Yeah, it's exciting times, broadly speaking. Interesting that Trump is trying to get his way. He's putting pressure on the Fed. That's kind of an unusual move to do that. They are supposed to be impartial. That's the whole point. But of course, they will usually be politically motivated one way or another. I think in the short term, it might be a good thing what he's trying to do. I mean, the market is definitely going to like it. In the long term, I don't think it will do the Republican Party very, very well, or unless they just see it as a personal thing that Trump's doing, because they are supposed to be independent. They're supposed to do what's right for the economy.
And I had to laugh because you use Trump and unusual in the same sentence, which those are frequently two words that go in the same sentence.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
It is definitely unusual, right? I think everything about Trump could be described as unusual.
Yeah. So yeah, he wants rates down because, of course, that is just good for the markets, good for people who've got assets, good for people right at the top. I mean, it's good for everyone to a certain extent, and it's kind of a cheaper way, or one of the cheapest ways of kind of gunning the economy higher, and it can work in the short term. The trouble is, what does it do? It's not without its price, it's not without its price. So in the long term, it can cause issues, and it depends on what those issues become. So this is a problem, and but he'll probably get his way, and the market's certainly excited about, or has been excited about, a September cut for some time. We've seen what's playing into Trump's hands here, and I'm not taking any side politically because I just look at the markets, is that we've had weak inflation data, we've had weaker, well, I say we've had weak inflation data. We've had data that independently saying inflation is weaker than being printed, and that's from Truflation. How independent they are, I don't know, but they're not the government, so take that for what you want. Non-farms was definitely weaker and revised weaker backwards, which suggests a slowing economy. And there is this upheaval over the tariffs. Companies are individually having to deal with potentially higher prices for products from abroad. So this is a difficult situation. And when the ship hits some turbulence, one of the buttons you press is lower interest rates. So let's see what happens. As far as the broader picture goes, the macro picture, nothing's really changed. I mean, if you kind of go back however long on every single week that we've talked about the macro picture, it's been pointing higher, apart from the, during shakeouts, and most shakeouts have been driven by just short-term fear, and the tariffs was a bigger one of those. But as you've seen with the recovery, that was just that as well. It was just a short-term shake up as the market's going on its merry way. So, we're in August. August is thinner trading volume. Key traders on the desks take holidays as well, and junior traders are in charge, and that can sometimes cause a little bit of an air pocket in the markets. Occasionally we'll see some big moves. Last year was around this time, July into August, we saw the Japanese yen strengthen very aggressively and the Nikkei fall, and that had ripples right across the market. So it's been a bit more behaved in the short term. I mean, we've come off a big level in the stock market, but overall things are still positive.
Yeah, historically, August for Bitcoin and crypto has been slow too. So what we're going through right now is just par for the course. Even in 2017 and 2021, which were amazing bull run years for crypto, August was not much going on. September and October, different story, but August, not much going on. September just started to really ramp upwards a little bit. And then October in 2017, November and December were really, really big. October was pretty decent too.
It wouldn't surprise me if a lot of our audience were on holiday at this time. I mean, I don't know, Canada, America, whether they take holidays around this period, but certainly in Europe, it's like that.
Yeah, definitely traveling, family vacations, doing some different things. Usually a lot of the audience is older, has kids, and so they're going to be taking vacation with the kids while the kids are out from school. So we see a lot of that as well. Well, what are you looking at, Paul? What markets are you looking at? Before we take a look at crypto, what are you seeing in the broader markets?
Yeah, let's have a quick spin through the markets as always. This was the tariff situation, and look how it V'd back up again. We've got this key high at 45,000 in the Dow. 1-2 came back for a third test, and it will break it. I believe it will get through at some point, and it's just a question of how much further down it will go, or how long it will be in this consolidation before it breaks out. But the trend is still up, and if you take a step back and look at the big picture, that's what you'll see. A broader long-term upward trend. So the economy's doing well. Transportation's going sideways. It'd be good if that breaks into a new high, but that's still to come, I guess. Then we've got the S&P, which is the broader index, and that is still in an upward trend. We've had one strong down week, and it's recovering. But overall, that's looking good. The VIX had a bit of a jump, and then it's coming back again. So this jump, I'm sure, was an echo of what happened. Where was it last time? Should actually be on here somewhere. Where was it? Not really showing up that much, is it? Where was it? The July. Oh yeah. Okay, here we are. Yeah. So July. Yeah, it was that one. So it was July, August last year, and that was the big move up. And I think that was a concern that was going to happen and continue, or just as I say, it was an echo of that. But it seems to be coming back again, so we'll see. I mean, I would still be a bit cautious this month, just because we're still in this zone. But certain markets seem to be doing very well. The European stock markets, apart from the French stock market, is doing fine. You know, things are moving up. Asian markets are doing very well. The actually the Australian market is very interesting because that's commodity driven. You can see how that's broken into a new all-time high. And we've got the same in Canada. It's been a really strong bull market there. So this is all good news because it's forward looking for the economy, which means that there should be more money finding its way into risk on assets, base precious metals, and of course crypto. If we look at the Japanese stock market, we see again, this was the breakdown point last year. And it came right back up to test it again and failed right on that level, which was quite amazing. And I think it will go through, but it's just obviously going to consolidate a bit longer before it does. So that was an amazing retouch, and everything happened right at the same time, the down, the Nikkei, and us going into this 1 year period. So it's not surprising that things have been a bit volatile, but all that kind of leads into, well, actually, let's have a quick look at the US dollar, because that's obviously important. In preparation for perhaps a bit of chaos in the markets, the dollar started to rally, and then it's come back again and it's behaving a bit better. Not necessarily out of the woods, because from what I was hearing, there were what I call boomerang trades of people talking about the dollar going down. So wherever I looked, people were telling me the dollar's bearish, the dollar's going down. And of course, when that happens, it means that there's probably in the short term too many people on that side of the boat, and it needs to correct itself. So I think the dollar could still perhaps, I think we even talked about it going back up to 100, maybe a bit more, before it then comes back down again and continues its downward trend. And so, so the dollar's just at this point in a consolidation, and precious metals are in a consolidation. But what's really interesting about the precious metals market is the gold. I look at gold and silver. So gold is still in this constriction, which has been, waiting to break out. That should really break out to the upside. Silver's playing catch up, so that should break out to the upside. Palladium's had a bit of a bad time. It had a good breakout, and now it's come back again, but that should join the trend. And platinum as well, that had a good breakout, and now that should go into a stronger trend. But the silver miners, these are the mining stocks, and the gold miners are right on some really important levels here. And so this is just basically saying that mining stocks are doing extremely well, which kind of feeds into this risk on thing, because they've been underperforming the rest of the market. So what it's saying really is that you're seeing a broadening out of buying from not just tech, it's moving into kind of core businesses and different businesses. So that's a good sign for risk on, and it's a good sign for the rest of, the year. And so into 26, I think things are just going to remain positive, and that doesn't mean that there won't be any corrections. It just means that the underlying macro themes will look good. But I guess it's all kind of immaterial if the markets aren't going up. But Bitcoin has been going up. It has been in a great upward trend, and it's been, called, the end has been called many times, and it's still not the end. I don't think it is. There's not enough evidence for it to be the end. Now, whether altcoins join is another matter, and I think they will. They've definitely taken their time, and if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said by now they should really be going. So it's surprising in some ways that not everything's going, but there are some key ones that are, but it's not a broad rally, but that's still potentially to come. So I don't think, I think people have thrown in the towel with quite a few of them, and that may be a good sign. But we're not seeing the sentiment signals that are indicating that this is the end of this market. All the signs that are normally associated with it are absent. That doesn't guarantee that that this isn't the top. It just seems unlikely, or the probabilities are against it. So Bitcoin's still in an upward trend, maybe needs to consolidate a little bit. Same kind of August situation there. ETH, I think ETH is on the list. So ETH is very, very interesting. I mean, from this turnaround and this really strong rally, it stopped right at our resistance line. So this line coming right across here, it stopped last week, took a retracement, and is now heading back towards it. So I think this is building up to break out. And I would think it would do it sooner rather than later. I mean, it is possible, of course, that it will come all the way back down, then go all the way back up, and then, it'll be into next year before it breaks out. That's obviously possible. But it feels like the time is right now for it to go, because there is this disparity between Bitcoin and ETH, and because stocks are high and lots of other things are moving upwards. So the macro kind of wins, tailwinds are still there to push it higher. So it will be interesting to see what happens, especially seeing as I'm thinking that many people are probably not interested in ETH anymore, because it's, they're either in Bitcoin or just out, saying it's not moving enough. And that's usually when things start to surprise and take off. So so that's definitely a very important technical area to watch, and a breakthrough there would be significant, and it may run through to the high much quicker than people are thinking, perhaps into September, October. But if it does it earlier, then all the better.
Yeah, agreed. That chart does look bullish, and oftentimes the third time it comes to retest that line, it's usually ready to break through. So if it doesn't break through soon, then I think in the coming month to 2 months, it's going to punch through that. We were talking last night on the Omi is My Homie podcast about when I think things are going to happen. And I think the way it's looking for me, I'd give it great odds for later this year that the altcoin run happens, that Bitcoin breaks through to further highs, and that the altcoins really start to rally. I'd give it pretty good odds that a lot of that action happens this year. Then maybe a pullback, and then maybe things run up further the next year. That we'll have to see. When things run pretty hard this year, if they do run that way, kind of identifying the pullback and figuring out, might it run more, or is this run done? I remember in 2017 and 2021, when it did a big pullback after that, it was hard to tell if it was done or going to run. Most people were saying it was going to run more in 2018, and then it did savagely pull back further. In 2021, it did an interesting big run in March, pulled back savagely, and then ran further later in October 2021. So it had a double peak. How is 2025 going to play out? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. A shout out to Chris, who says, "What's up, Rainmaker family?" Everyone who watches this later can thank Chris for doing our timestamps. He does those for us every week. Thank you, Chris, for doing that. Kevin joining us. Kevin, funny story. For a while, I wondered if you were a bot, because you always said exactly the same thing. Good morning from Lakeland, Florida. And I was like, never anything else, right? So you changed it up recently, I noticed. Good morning the last couple times.
He put an exclamation mark this time. So.
Yeah.
No, oh no, maybe it was the same. I don't know.
Bodo says, "Do you like the look
Kevin.
of MCADE?" We'll take a look at MCADE. What's up, Money May? Chris, got slaughtered on my 100x copper long. Time to move to 100x long on silver.
Yeah. I put the chart up here. Actually, it's a good shout that Chris mentions that, because for two reasons. Well, I mean, one is obviously he knows, and we all know that leverage is very dangerous. And the other thing is that, yeah, this was a great looking chart, and then dropped 25% literally in a day, and that was all on this tariff situation. Well, they were saying that the market was up because the cost of copper was going to go up because of tariffs, and it dropped because he didn't put he made some form of exception. But I think this is still going to be in an upward trend. It's very unusual for it to dump like that, although it did aggressively come off here a little bit in March. It's still unusual price action if you go back into its history. So that to me looks like as you know, for someone like China looking at cheaper prices, this is a really great opportunity if they're going to try and expand their economy to jump in and buy copper at a cheaper price. So it'll be interesting to see how much further it falls and how long it stays down here. But of course, this is shaking the market up, and so whether you just jump in straight away or wait a bit. Personally, I think waiting a bit here would be the right move, because when the market ends after a move like this, it usually has a much stronger bounce, and that's a bit of a weaker bounce than I'd like to see. So it may come down to this area here, print as long as it prints a higher low and the trend is broadly higher. I think that's still indicating that commodities are in demand. But yeah, it is a bit of a shock to see that happen like that. I'll be honest with you, and that's also why I always like to have kind of parachute levels for when things go wrong, because you just never know. And I think even with a stop, that would have been difficult, because the market may have gone right through your stop. Stops don't guarantee that you're going to get the price. It just what they're going to try and get. And if it's kind of gapping down, you might get a much worse price than you think. But thankfully, things like that are few and far between. They don't often happen. And you know, let's hope we don't see that sort of price action again.
Mike Jones throwing out a super chat, so we will prioritize it. I beg you, Rain, can we do DevvStream Corp again today? A reverse split has been announced today. Stock is crashing hard right now. Interesting. So, yeah, you know, reverse split, it's interesting that they made that decision. I guess, you know what, let's go ahead and pull that up, and then we'll take a look at TRON, which has done some interesting things the last couple months. Also, we will take a look at Illuvium today. May, that's been doing some interesting things as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So this whole price action from last time was, we were looking for it to stabilize around here and then start to move up. Obviously, that's not happened. It's taken this support out, which is a reason to be concerned as far as I'm concerned, because you know it's here when it should be here. So you know there will be some support coming in at 24 cents, because that was the breakout point. Perhaps even here, I don't know if that's good price action, or when something's illiquid, you can get bars that aren't actually traded prices, so you get these little spikes. So it's difficult to know whether that's a real bar there, right there, because it's right on where we are and it's right on an important level as well. But ignoring that and saying, without me being able to check, because it would take a bit of time to check with another system, below that 24 cents would be kind of like the last line in the sand for me, because then you're really looking at this area here and it's getting dangerously close to the all-time low. And you know how I feel about that is, you know, it's not a buy when you're in that position at all. So I mean, you can buy it there, but it's, for me, that's not how I approach markets. I approach markets on the basis of strength, not weakness. So it has to prove strength to me, and it wouldn't be proving any strength until it's going back up. So I want to see it back in this zone. You know, why don't we just agree? I mean, it's your channel, so it's really up to you what we do. But I wouldn't mind seeing this again next week and seeing where we are. But at the moment, it's, if I had to do something here, for me, it'd be definitely a wait, because you know I wanted it to get into this zone for it to be a buy, or to increasingly towards this area here, even though it's really far away. That is where, for me, it's a buy. So this is kind of a weakening area. This was a more neutral to bullish area because it was forming what could be a really nice base, but could be forming a nice base and actually forming a nice base and completing a nice base are different things. So as you're saying, you can trade any price at any time, but technically for me, it has to be justified somehow. So let's have a look. When was this? 7th of May 25. Okay. I'm just trying to see if there's any significant. November 24 is when that happened. Okay. I mean, yeah, for the moment, it is from a neutral position, I wouldn't be buying that. I'd be waiting, certainly. And, ultimately, I want to see this pull back up and come back into this zone. I'd also like to know why they've done what they've done. I mean, it's not like it's a reverse. What is a reverse stock split? I've not heard of that. I've heard of a stock split.
So they merge like 2 into 1 or 10 into 1 instead of going 1 share and splitting into 10 or splitting into 2. They're actually consolidating. And so if you own, I don't know if it's a 1 to 2, like where they're splitting 2 of them down to 1, why they would be doing that. That's interesting. I hadn't heard that. This was the first time I've heard that they're doing that, Mike. I've had companies want to do that. I've consulted with some companies that want to do that in the crypto space, and they're like, "Oh, we have too many tokens outstanding. We should reduce that." I'm like, "No, don't." And they're like, "Yeah, but it's just too cheap." And I was like, Shiba Inu has like gazillion out there, and its market cap is able to hit a big price. The problem if you make too few is sometimes people buy based on, especially with cryptos, they'll buy based on the token price. And the cheaper the token price seems, the more they buy of it. So you never want to go the other direction. So why they would do that on stocks, I don't know. I don't know if stocks holds the same thing. Like at the end of the day, I know enough to look at market caps. Brand new people coming into crypto don't know enough to look at market caps because the token price is irrelevant until you know how many tokens there are out there. And then that gives you the token price times the number of tokens out there. It gives you an idea what the market cap is. And the market cap tells you whether it's expensive or cheap. Not the token price, but with stocks, yeah, that's weird. That's a weird decision. However, my friend Big A is asking for us to look at coin, or at least we'll look at coin in a little bit. Mike, thanks for the super chat. I'm really curious to see this bull run. I think there's going to be massive mergers and acquisitions, and there's only a few crypto-based projects that have stocks out there. And I think when crypto goes crazy, I think some of those stocks go crazy too, because those people that are familiar with the stock market will look for that. And we'll also see massive mergers and acquisitions. I think this bull run, as a lot of major corporations try to play catch up by acquiring some of the players in the crypto industry.
Yeah, just to clarify a few things. So, so my understanding of what you're talking about here, usually when a stock hits a certain high level, like Amazon, when it hit $1,000, it would do something called a script issue, which is it just gives you more shares for the single shares that you have. In other words, to bring the price down, which is more a mathematical calculation. It's nothing more than that. It shouldn't change the fundamentals of the company at all. But the reason why they do that is because it encourages people, because smaller investors certainly like to buy, inverted commas, cheap stocks. It cheapens the actual price of the stock to make it more attractive or to appear more attractive. But as Jay was saying, the actual value of the stock is related to the market capitalization, and that doesn't change because of the script issue. And so that's why you shouldn't really judge two companies based upon their actual share price alone. There's more to it than that. but so it's effectively a reverse script issue that's going on here. I just hadn't heard the term reverse split, because a split suggested something was going on in terms of something was going to be usually when a company needs money, they issue something called a rights issue. Now, a rights issue is bad, because a rights issue is when a company is basically asking for more money, and instead of raising it by issuing bonds or doing something like that, they actually issue more shares, but they force the current holders of those shares to buy more. So they offer them usually at a discount to encourage the current share owners to buy into the stock. But then what happens is it kind of dilutes and devalues the value of the share price. Now, if that money's used wisely for the company and helps with a flagging business, or it's used for some clever purchase, then it can be a really good thing. But it's usually taken as a bad thing, as a knee-jerk reaction. If this is just a simple reverse script issue, as we're saying, then I can't see why it would affect the price. It should not really. It should have no effect on the price, because they're not raising more money. So I'd have to have a look a little bit further into what's going on here. It might just be coincidental that the price is going down and they're looking at something else that they're not happy with. But it is a bit of an odd decision to take at this point, because it's not exactly, trading at fractions of a cent. But we'll have to just wait and see if more details emerge.
Yeah, that is interesting. So the reverse split would make the shares, instead of 28 cents a piece, they would be $2.80 a piece. And all it is just a calculation thing. So what's funny is it affects sentiment. When you do a split, sometimes it pumps the price, which it mathematically shouldn't, but it does. Really, everything's really the same. And a reverse split will often dump the price, even though really why it does, it's just emotion, right? And the reason why charting even works at all is because, well, people's emotions are somewhat similar based on where the chart has gone in the past, and in different ways that emotions play out. If there weren't emotions involved at all, charting wouldn't hardly work at all. So it's funny that there's a reverse split and the token or the stock price dumps. Well, let's take a look at TRON. We'll look at TRON, WAN, and then DEVVE, and then we'll look at some of the suggestions in the order that they came in at, and just continue looking what we can see is going on in the market.
Yeah, TRON, is this the correct one? That's not, doesn't look like the chart I looked at before, actually. Let me just double check.
That's that kind of climb. It's at 33 cents roughly right now. That's correct.
Is that right? Okay. Yeah. I mean, this, funnily enough, when I looked at it before, let me see. Okay. I mean, obviously the breakout point was here. You can see how, I mean, this is what I'm looking for in some other markets, right? So we've had the hype, then the correction, the move up. We're in this sort of phase and it's moving back up again. I want to see it take out the prior high, which it's done really aggressively and actually overcooked as well. It's hard to get on board a market like this, because especially when it's accelerating and the bars are getting bigger and bigger, that can be a sign that it's just overcooking. That's why I sometimes say I don't really want it to go too fast. I'd rather it go slowly. And that seems to be what this is doing. And it's, a really decent looking chart. I do like this. I like the way the long-term chart is bullish. I like the way the short-term chart is bullish as well. If we kind of move in, this is a weekly chart. So it's working its way back up to this previous high. We could look at maybe some percentage levels along the way. So we take that high and we take that low, and we can see if there's any stopping points for it. So it's currently going through the 50% level, which is a good sign. So usually go to 61.8, 75, and then 100%. But overall, that's looking very interesting. And so, you know, I would have that on my buy list. And you know, if you look at the difference between that and some other charts, they're almost inverted. You know, the ones that clearly aren't performing very well. I'm forced to sell those other ones, and I'm forced to buy something that's going up because that's what the trend is, and that's what technical analysis is all about. So for me, that's looking very interesting. I can't remember what TRON do. What is exactly their business?
So funny enough, they really only do one major thing, but they do it really well, is that USDT and a few other stable coins use the TRON blockchain because it sends cheaply and fast, and it's been reliable.
Okay.
So really the biggest thing they did was in 2017 make stable coins, US dollar tether, available to be sent on it. And that's its major use case. And so
Okay.
part of the reason I think it's doing tremendously is that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, for me, it's and this is just for me based on the chart. And as you know, as the chart of copper will tell you, I'm not always right about where it's going. Of course, I know I can get things wrong, but the probability for me is that the market's going up. So for me, it's a buy.
Yeah. It's crazy because what's funny is Justin's son was like drunk, and he was talking about how his blockchain really didn't do anything. I think that came out like he made so much money from having made the Tron blockchain, that he is doing other things. Now, what's interesting is I had a conversation with Manu like 2 weeks ago, and he was talking to me about why Tether and Tron is a big deal right now. And it's banks, when they're dealing with stablecoins, they have to have the primary chain or stablecoin that they're looking at, but they also, by regulation, have to have a backup. And so right now, Tron's the best available backup for blockchain for transmittance of a stablecoin. Now, there's some other companies trying to do that, like ETH is the primary one, and most banks are building to use ETH chain for that. But they have to have a backup chain to use. And so Tron's the best available one. Now, Polygon might be fighting for it. I think Polkadot's trying to get some relevance there to be transmittance, because the fear about Tron's blockchain is there seems like there might be some CCP control of Tron, which makes banks feel a little bit uncomfortable for reasons I can understand. So it's interesting what is going on with Tron and their price going crazy. It probably has to do with the stablecoin bills. All right, let's take a look at something. Kyle says rain in 2013, which I didn't look at. Crypto went up 30% in August, which is interesting. But what were you looking at to see that crypto in general went up by 30% in August? Let's take a look at Bitcoin specifically in 2017, and let's see what it did there in August. Whoa. TradingView wants me to pay for their services again. Well, shoot. I'm sorry. I like the free version of TradingView. I have paid for it in the past. Okay, so August. Here was August 2016, and then let's take a look at it. 2017. It did climb. Well, right here as it was entering August, it was about here. So it did climb and then came back.
I think we're covering up the where you pointed on the chart.
Yeah, good call. So it looks like in 2017, it did climb right here and then came back down. But you're right. By the end of August, it climbed considerably and then came back down just after that and then went back up. So you're right there that actually Bitcoin saw some considerable action in 2017. Let's look at 2021, which was interesting. 2021 had this double peak, and it bottomed out in July here, and then it climbed up. So in August, again, it did go up considerably and then came back down mid-September. So it played out the same. August actually saw some action, came back down in mid-September, and then ran higher. So they both had that pattern, both in 2017 and 2018. That August did move quite a bit, but then came back down by mid-September.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify on the August sort of what the markets are doing is broadly what the markets are doing outside of Bitcoin. It's not necessarily that August will be a sideways month. It's just that when you get a correction in the other markets that get a bit heavy, that's when it can hit Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is an interesting asset because it is a non-correlated asset, and that's why fund managers or hedge funds like it, because it doesn't trade like anything else. It has an underlying risk-on theme, but it doesn't, and it kind of moves with that, but it doesn't necessarily trade one for one with the stock market or other markets. But August is known to be a relatively bearish month, or at least a sideways month for stocks. September and October can be very difficult months for stocks. So all I was saying is that because of that, you've got to be, if things got out of hand, people would start selling Bitcoin again, if the same thing that happened last year. So in the context of what you were looking at there, those were very strong bull phases. One of them, it was like mid bull phase with very, very little correction. So the context of that one was that the market was on the run, and it's when it's like that, it's hard to stop it, and it will just do it no matter what everything else is doing. But yeah, I mean, that's interesting. It's good that we've got a great audience that kind of knows what's happening each month. That's really good to see.
I like it. All right, let's take a look next at WAN chain. TRON, do I actually hold TRON? No. Do I trade it? No. If I was buying blue chips, would I be buying it? No. All of that would not get a buy from me. I just don't know its future relevance. I think for now they hold a huge amount of tether still traded on it tremendously. Like that's been the primary use case of it. But I don't know how relevant they're going to be in the future. Maybe they continue to keep the number 2 position for trading of stable coins, but probably that will go away at some point too, as other competitors come in. I did learn one of my most valuable lessons that funny TRON brings up that lesson. I'd love to share it because when I was brand new in crypto, I was watching a channel and he was talking about TRON, and he had held TRON for a year when it looked like this and nothing was happening. And he had held it for a whole year. Now, this only shows a little bit because it wasn't on CoinGecko. At the time, there was some other charting mechanism he was showing it on. They held it for a year, and the price had pretty much bounced around and not really done anything. And he ended up selling it like right at this point. And I'm thinking, why in the world would he sell it? He literally sold it right before it went up. And it's really because I see this mistake made over and over and over with investments, in that people get what's called recency bias. So he'd been sitting there holding on to TRON while he was watching Bitcoin absolutely take off and Bitcoin go crazy. And he just wanted to be where the action was rather than where it wasn't. And so he sold his TRON right like 5 days before it went massively crazy for Bitcoin, which had already realized most of its gains. And so he didn't get much gain with Bitcoin from that point. And TRON went up absolutely tremendously. And, I was so puzzled. I was like, why would he do that? I see people make that mistake over and over and over again. People make that mistake all the time. So that's why I take longer term positions and I just hold them through their boring phase. And I see if I'm right that they go absolutely crazy. And that has worked out tremendously well for me. All right. So on to WAN chain. Let's take a look at what WAN chain is doing. We're not hearing your audio.
Sorry. Yeah, I put me on mute while I was, distracted there for a second. So one chain, I was looking at it a few weeks back, and I'll explain why. Because it was making this double bottom pattern. So we had this move into lows, which is obviously not a good sign, and then went up to here, up to this resistance point, which comes in at 13 cents, dipped down to 9.5 cents, and then it was coming back up to this point, which is classic reversal pattern. And the trend is now moving up. It's actually moving up at quite an interesting rate as well. So here we have the new trend line. Now you could say while it's above that line, it's a buy. It's tentative because it's a small pattern. This was supposed to be the big base up here, and it broke out and then failed. So it's still underwater from there, as it were, and there is still quite a powerful trend in effect this way. So it's why I have to be slightly guarded about it moving higher. But when there are signs that things are turning, we have to pay attention to that as well. And this is the first sign that something is turning. So for me, it would be a buy on a breakthrough 13 cents, because it would say that this pattern is complete. And then my strategy would be to put a stop below this trend line here to protect it if I'm wrong. So could you buy it here? Yeah, you could. You put the stop in the same place, fine. It's got better risk against reward because where you're buying it against where your stop is tighter, but it could still just come straight down. So the momentum is just starting. It's a question of whether it's going to build up and actually break higher. So I'm kind of torn between calling it, for me, a buy and calling it a wait. I think realistically, I put coffee money at a level here, and I would wait for the breakout because I'd want to see confirmation, as tempting as it is. And I would only do that because I'd be looking around to see if something looks better. I might want to put it in TRON instead or something else. But if I was only trading this and this alone, and I had no other choice, then I would take a position. It looks good enough if there are no alternatives to take a small punt at this level, but then to add on, or take a proper position on a breakout with a stop. So I don't know what buttons you press for that, but those are the different strategies, if that makes sense. Right, your mic's gone now.
Kyle, with the super chat, just reiterating, rain in 2013, crypto went up 30% in August. 2017 went up 65% in August. 2021 went up 13% in August. Seems that in blow off top years, August is good for crypto. That was a really interesting observation, and I missed that, Kyle, and I appreciate you. So in blow off tops, August moves. So maybe we'll have more action than I was thinking this month. You're right. The data seems to bear that out. Let's see. Let me pull up WAN chain.
So I hadn't checked that sort of. I don't check that sort of thing, but I find it really interesting. So I appreciate that. It's the sort of data analysis that I've been looking to do in the future. That's really good. So I suspect there's other data patterns that Devo Kyle's got. I don't know if he's got his own channel or what have you, but that's really good stuff.
Yeah. So I have a very different methodology from what Paul uses, which what I love about Paul joining us, it gives you a different perspective, different insights, and he has different fundamentals that he trades off of. Me, I only invest in the crypto space. I don't access all these different markets. And so for me, I invest in the greater 4-year pattern of what tends to happen is every 4 years, at least this is what's been happening since 2013. Every 4 years, crypto goes absolutely crazy. It peaks and then it has a massive pullback, and that volatility is what I'm trading. So I like to buy low and I like to sell high. And interestingly enough, it's 2025, the year that the blow off top should generally happen. And some of these higher risk altcoins are incredibly low still, which is amazing to me. And OneChain is one of those. I mean, you're looking at its price, it's cheaper now by a little bit than it even was back in the bear market of 2020. And yet, in preparation for 2021's bull market, OneChain only caught some traction because a lot of what they were doing wasn't fully deployed and ready. Now, a lot of what they've been working on for years and structuring right is deployed and ready. They have their bridge out there. They have their X flows. I use OneChain service all the time to move money between different stable coins as well as to different chains. And it's extremely intuitive and easy to use. And they've done a phenomenal job. Just DeFi's narrative hasn't run since literally 2021. So it's not surprising to me that OneChain's token price is down. But what I look at rather than like the individual token prices, what is the market cap? And the market cap is 23, almost 24 million. For a project that has a really solid use case, it actually now has implemented a token burn. As you use the bridge, some tokens get burned. There's really good fundamentals behind OneChain, and that's what I buy based on is I want to buy something that's out of the hype cycle, that has a market cap that makes sense for being low, in my opinion, that I was like, I think it's massively undervalued because the spotlight's not on it, but yet actually has a use case that I can see being used in the future that people will utilize for things. So OneChain fits that perfectly, which is why I've agreed to have them in a long-term strategic relationship, is because OneChain's one of my favorite undervalued projects. It's something I own myself. I say no to most companies that want to do strategic relationships or even in kind of sponsorship or endorsement. I pretty much say no to about 98 to 99% of the projects, but OneChain is one that I personally hold, I personally invest in, and I like. So yes, I said yes to them. The other one is DEVVE, and Paul's joining us from DEVVE, and another one of my favorite altcoins. But when Paul is joining us, we never talk about DEVVE's price action because Paul doesn't want to talk his own book, which is completely understandable. All right. So OneChain, for me, it gets a buy at this because I'm buying based on that, what I feel is undervalued. And when I'm buying something that's undervalued, I just know that sometimes I buy when I feel it's massively undervalued, and sometimes it goes down more. And I look at that as a good thing, especially if I'm able to dollar cost average more in at that lower price. And then if it goes down more, I buy more because there's a certain threshold of when I feel something is a good price, and that's when I start buying. And sometimes I'm blessed that it gets even cheaper and I can buy more at that really good price. So it's just a different way of looking at it than what most people look at. They buy something, it goes down, they like start to panic and wonder if they should sell. For me, I'm asking the question, can I buy even more? Because now it's even more discounted. I can get more tokens for the same amount of money. And I see that as a good thing. And then I'm just waiting for that blow off top, and specifically that narrative to run within that greater blow off top. All right, let's take a look at our next one, which is DEVVE. See how it's doing.
Yeah, so DEVVE, we were looking at like a few steps back when it was in this downward trend. We were waiting for this downward trend to finish and trying to work out where that might be. So we got this potential inverse head and shoulders pattern that was forming, and that was the head, and it went down and then back up again and gave a buy signal breaking through this 60 cents point, but it got rejected very quickly, which is a bit disappointing. And then I think we were looking at, was it? No. So yeah, that would have been into last week with it just coming back down again. So I think we would have said there that we'd give it a bit of room. And then, because sometimes it does do that, it just hangs around and then goes back up again. This is a slightly deeper correction than I would have liked, because the buy point was here. And for me, I have to have a stop somewhere to show me that I'm wrong. Now, we can draw this as a developing upward trend line, and with more volatile products, it will give a bit more space, because by their very nature, they're going to retrace, or hopefully in the other way, overshoot on the upside as well. So we could put a stop below this line. The only problem is it's very close to it, and that would mean kind of exiting out. Below that, I can justify an upward trend line from this point here, but then you could also justify a downward trend line from here. So you're seeing that the big picture is becoming kind of more balanced. It's like in the center of something rather than pushing one way or the other. And this is why this was such an important move, because it was suggesting that we were going to be moving into this area and then heading up towards pushing the balance towards the upside. But the balance is kind of still neutral here. It's still very sticky and heavy in this area. So it's frustrating that it hasn't broken out. But that doesn't mean that it won't. It's just taking more time and holding capital while it's not moving, which again is frustrating. So I think this shakes out into, if I was neutral and didn't have a position, would I put a position on here? I'd probably be inclined to wait at this point, just because I want to see it heading back into the original trade, which was a break of 60 cents. So that means it's got to be at a higher zone. If I was feeling a bit more speculative with everything else running, then I could justify a buy here with a stop below, a very tight stop below this trend line, and then a larger stop below this trend line. That I could do, even though it's more of a 60-40 trade given the kind of bigger picture. If it was up here, it would be a different story, because the trend rate would be favoring the upside far more clearly. So I think I'm sure we're going to be looking at this again, because this is one that we come back to quite often. For me, in this very short-term phase, I'm going to say it's a wait, just because I want to see it hold this support, which it looks like it's going to. And I don't mind letting it just rise a little bit to bring it back towards this breakout point where it becomes more of a buy. I know it was a buy last week and a few weeks ago as well, but while it was forming this base. But I'm going to say it's a wait, because it's come just a little further down, away from that buy trigger than I would like. So I just want to monitor it, and I'm sure we're going to look at it again next week. So it's a short-term wait, but a long-term, I think long-term it will turn around, but it's just a question of, it's got to prove it with the price action.
All right. Well, my audience knows that I love DEVVE. It's interesting that it's playing along this pattern, came back to retouch it. I mean, if I were to draw this a little more accurate, be down a little bit farther. But it looks like a pretty strong support here. So we'll see how this plays out. But DEVVE is one of those ones that fundamentally I really, really like. It's got a 43, almost $44 million market cap. It's a layer one blockchain that's faster than any layer one out there. Now, the only reason I feel like it's even anywhere near this inexpensive for a market cap for a layer one blockchain is that most in the crypto space are still completely unaware of them, like completely unaware of them. They're faster than any blockchain out there. They're faster than Hedera Hashgraph, which is their direct competitor, because DEVVE is a permission blockchain. It's not a permissionless blockchain. Like Cardano is a permissionless blockchain. ETH is a permissionless blockchain, meaning anyone can write to it. DEVVE is a permission blockchain, which will work out for enterprise blockchain way, way, way better. Hedera Hashgraph is also a permission blockchain. That's why they're direct competitors. Now, indirectly, they compete with the permissionless blockchains too. But for this kind of market cap, is just absurdly low and just reflects the level of unawareness out there. Now, keep in mind, Axie Infinity had massive unawareness, and the prices were really, really suppressed because there was low awareness. And then as awareness came around, the price went crazy. TRON at one point didn't have as much awareness, and it didn't have its use case ready. And as its use case became ready and there was more awareness, its price pumped massively in 2017. So will DEVVE get that awareness cap? I think so. They signed a deal with one of the largest exchanges in the world in December last year, and that still has not been publicly announced. If that exchange is as big as they've made it seem, that kind of weight alone will launch this into some massive awareness, and this blockchain, like the price could pump 10x to even more from here, just bringing it more in line of where it could and probably should be, which is a market cap somewhere between 800 million to 8 billion market cap, just based on where things are now. If that announcement is big enough, could take it even higher than that. So we'll see how this does play out. I'm heavily invested in DEVVE. I'm highly biased towards it. Understand that I'm biased. This is one of my larger holdings in all of crypto, because one I personally believe in strongly, and I've gone very heavy into it. All right. Hello, I caught your show last week where you covered Strike. I'd be interested. Paul had more data on his thoughts. Instead of CoinGecko, try Tap Tools, and it's number 2 on the list. Okay, I'll put that on the list to come back around to. So we went through all the ones I had scheduled to look at. We'll start going through some of the suggestions. Do we like the look of MCADE?
It is interesting, that is for sure. Let's just get a bit more data here. I mean, I'm guessing I'll be able to get a longer term chart somewhere else. In the kind of 2-year chart that we've got here, you can see where the range has been. It's in pretty much by eye trading around the middle of that. Had a good run here, of course, but where did it stop? So I just put this line in while you were chatting, and it's this level that is the key to this at 2.3 cents. 1, 2, 3 times it's hit there, so it's got to go for another one in order to break it. Now it is holding up at these levels, which is good. It's consolidating. When it did that last time, you see, it went 1, 2, and then went into a downward trend. There's a bit of a risk of that, but it's not done it yet. It's kind of fighting back. So it's a wait for me here, but I'd like to come back to it again, because anywhere in this area here, you know, that's where it becomes really interesting for a break, because it would have broken the pattern there when it did it. It came straight off. Here it went 1, 2, and then it came down. Here it's done sort of 1, 2. It's come down. If it's gone up, that's a break in its signature, if you like, because it's wouldn't have done that before, and that would suggest that it's getting ready to break higher. This is also potentially what I would call a bullish falling wedge. I know I've seen different descriptions and definitions of that, but that's what a bullish falling wedge can look like. And it's where it's kind of a failure of a double top, where the market just goes into a compression and then breaks higher. But you need a breakout signal to kickstart that process, and that would be the break of a downward trend line from here, a very like a compressed part of the pattern. So if we were to zoom in, it would be a break of this line here. Now, the problem with that is that, of course, it can just zip over and then zip back, and it's hard to get a definitive break. But I would say anywhere, well, you know, this level's as good as any. Anywhere trading over there is a confirmation that this isn't certainly playing out as a double top, and it's more likely to be a continuation pattern, and that will put this level under threat. And when that goes, it kind of opens up. I guess there is this level here from the breakdown from this double top to contend with, but I think it'd be unusual for it to break this level and then just stop here and go down. Not impossible, but more likely it would start to trade into this zone, and we'd be talking about this high level up here. So there's a few steps it needs to take before it's looking, getting into to blue sky, but it's definitely possible. And again, I'd say this is one that we should come back to because it's an interesting point where it is right now. So short term, it's a wait, but I'd like to see it again in a couple of weeks.
Yes. Interesting. So I'm always trying to learn, and I look at patterns and how they play out. And if viewers in this have been around for a while, you remember some things playing out quite interesting. Let me share my screen. If you remember, this one went crazy here, and it went all the way to 4.5 cents. And everyone was talking about, oh my gosh, it's the best deal. And prior, they had gone up and they went down, and we were still in a bear market for altcoins, and it went way up here. And some of the people I knew were calling for, oh my gosh, it's an amazing buy. It's just going to keep going up. And that's not what happened. Now, will it go up from this high going into the greater bull run when altcoins really kick off? Yeah, it'll probably exceed that. But remember, this is why one of my rules is I don't chase green candles, because often when you're not in the greater bull run yet, it will pull back down and give you better chances for entry. So 4.5 cents is down 2/3 from that at 1.5 cents. And it got really cheap under a cent here. Now, I did an interview with the MCADE team, and I really like them. What they're doing, I think, is going to serve them really well in a bull run too, because they are partnering with different other blockchains to help them grow their communities by running certain games within their community with prizes. And it's unique. I found the founders were smart business people with an idea that I think makes sense. I don't think Medicaid becomes a massive market cap project. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think it has potential to do a 10 or 20 or 30x from the price that it's at. But I'd be looking for a really good entry point so that I might have higher potential for upside. So the current price, it would just be a wait for me because I'd want a really juicy entry price on this. I do like the team. At the end of the day, if you caught my interview last week with Laura, who is a principal at Gate.com's venture capital arm, she said the team is the most important thing of what she invests in, and she's right. And I like the team behind Medicaid. Second is, how good is their idea? What is the novelty of it? What is the use case of it? And I felt like their use case was pretty cool. I think in a bull run, it does really well. Does it go to a market cap in the billions? I don't know if it's a strong enough use case for that. Maybe. But I think it can have significant upside from here. I'm just looking for a juicy entry price. So I know during the bear market when it was going crazy and people were like, oh my gosh, Medicaid to the moon. It's like, it's not yet ready for that. And it's not. But at some point, I think it goes considerably higher than this previous high of 4.5 cents. All right. Let's take a look next at, what was it? So we did Medicaid.
Was it Illuvium?
Illuvium. Yes, this has had some fun price action. Let's take a look at Illuvium.
Yeah, this is very interesting. So what we've got here, let's get into the daily chart. So we've got signs of a change in market dynamics, which is very important, and especially in a space that has been kind of dormant for a while. So clearly strong downward trend. And if we were trading at these levels, of course, I'd be saying it's not a buy or it's a wait. I can't justify a buy here. But then we had the makings of a reversal here that just kind of failed. Sometimes when that happens, it goes into a bigger pattern, and it seems that that's what's happened here. So it's got a more kind of a bigger base, which is a better signal for perhaps the longer term. So I can justify saying it for me that it's a buy. Now, of course, with these levels, when you're trading technically, you're looking for an area to buy and an area to get out if you're wrong. The further it's moved up in the trend, the worse what's called your risk reward ratio is, because what you're aiming to do is have 3-to-1 as a risk reward ratio, which means that you make 3 times the profit if you're right against 1 point as the loss. Now, the way it works here is that if the market's moved a long way and then you jump on board, I can justify that, but I also have to justify putting my stop in a reasonable place. Now, a reasonable place would be below the buy point or the main buy point, which would have been around $16, 16.84, or below that around $14. So, I'm kind of buying at 20 with a stop below 14, which is a bit of a bigger range than I would like. But having said that, when things start moving, they can really move. So, it's kind of a balancing act. So this is why it is important to keep looking at lots of markets, because when they move fast. Even when they don't look like they're going to move, they can suddenly do this, and you're kind of chasing it. So a plan as to where you're going to buy. That's why I talk about these levels that are higher up, and what constitutes a buy, or what constitutes an interesting point where you're getting ready. That's why these points exist. So what I have to call it a buy because it's made a base and it's moved up and it's correcting a little bit, which is fine. But I think this is an interesting indication of perhaps what could be going on elsewhere. We're looking for signs that the altcoin rally is starting, and this is one of those signs. One of them was ETH recovering and the spread against Bitcoin kind of coming back a long way, considering how far it'd gone in the other direction. But the other sign is dormant coins like this that suddenly, shows some signs of strength. Now, I'd like to see more in the same sector do the same thing, because it could just be a one-off. Maybe it's just this announcement that's come out, or I'm not saying there is an announcement, but maybe there has been an announcement that's caused this move. So we'd have to verify that there's other things moving in the right direction. But yeah, that would let's hope it broadens out into other coins that are in the same gaming space, which I think is what this is in, right?
Yes, it is. I
Right.
was just digging a little bit deeper, see if I could figure out what might have caused that. And maybe it's this right here. From their Twitter, it says on August 5th, so it's yesterday, Rangers, the Illuvium Pro League 2025 is here, 250K prize pool, epic tournaments, and shot at the main event in December. And so maybe that's got people excited. What I was trying to do is, cool, check other blockchain gaming projects and see how they've done. So August 2nd, Axie Infinity, which is kind of the premier blockchain gaming project, dropped to $2.13, and then it climbed. It seems to be climbing on it. So this is what the chart looks like on a little bit bigger horizon. It seems like maybe it's bottomed and maybe it's turning around. Maybe is the operative word. Another one is Gunzilla's token, bottomed so far at 2.1 cents, and maybe it's turning around. Gunzilla hasn't been out for all that long, so it's hard to tell. But yeah, Illuvium making some moves here. Now, I felt like Illuvium has been an amazing buy below $40. So it got so incredibly cheap here at $10. It was an amazing buy. It's still a decent buy at $20. I think it's a good buy. It was an absolutely incredible deal at $10 or $11 or $14. So buying cheap is amazing because those gains can be so amplified. So it's good to see things coming together towards creating gaming competitions and tournaments, which will get a lot of players. I think the way they've developed this, that as blockchain gaming goes crazy, a lot of people will come to know their different characters and heroes in here that you can capture and own yourself, kind of like Pokemon. And I think they've done a good job. I think they have a product that people are going to love. Just hasn't got much attention because blockchain gaming is not on people's minds yet, but I think as crypto goes crazy, it will. And Illuvium is one of the lead players. So I would rate it a buy. And too bad it's not as cheap as it was, but it's still well within my buy zone. Great suggestion for us to take a look at. The next one we have to look at is Coin, which is going to be Coinbase's stock, which is one of the few crypto projects out there that has a stock related to it. So let's see what's going on with Coinbase.
Okay. Sorry, I was queued up for XRP, but I guess we can come back to that. So this is just Coin. Yeah. So yeah. So what's happening here? Well, I don't usually draw lines over highs, but that's kind of what it looks a bit like. Has gone on here. It's it's broken into a new high, which should be a buy. So is this definitely right? Yeah, Coinbase Global. Let me just check the dates. Yeah. So a break into a new high is in technicals a buy, especially when it's a major high like this. So it is disappointing that it's come back in this way. I don't know whether it's done this because of UK regulation, whether it's a big enough market to affect it, or whether there's other problems. But I think this will now just go sideways because anyone who's bought it just on this breakout will probably just hold it or maybe exit. The big picture trend is still bullish, which I like, but we've had kind of 3 weeks of corrective price action if this week ends on a negative note. And so, that's kind of enough to have reversed all the gains and a bit more from this initial breakout point, which I think things really started right here at 307, broke the high at 350, had a good run up, but we're now below that point. So I want to see a bit of stability coming in, and I suspect it would just tread water and range trade before it then starts to move higher. So for me, it's a wait at this point, and again, one, because it's so important, one that we should come back to. But I would prefer to sit on the sidelines for this until I can get some clarity on it rebounding and where that rebound might be.
Yeah, I don't own any coin, and in general, I've gone all in on crypto, and some people say that's so risky. You put all your things in crypto. It's like, yes. And they're not wrong. It is a risky play to make. But I think the 4-year pattern and then diversifying with it, I think I've built a solid way of approaching the risk within the crypto space. Now, if I'm wrong and crypto doesn't go absolutely crazy this next year, financially, that's going to hurt a bunch. Chances are strong that it will, but it's not a guarantee that it will. And so we'll see how it plays out. Now, if crypto doesn't do well, Coinbase probably won't do that well either. But it is fairly volatile, which is what makes it somewhat interesting for stocks, because it was just in January 2023 all the way down to almost $30 and literally 15x, almost 15x here at the top. And it's come off of that some, so it's gone down by a third. I don't know what the market cap is on this. I think in the coming bull run that Coinbase is going to do quite well and then probably pull back. I'm curious to see the mergers and acquisitions that happen this year. And I was talking to Manu about this a few months back. I was like, I think there's going to be tons of mergers and acquisitions. What's your take on it? What's your opinion? He said, absolutely. I see that coming really hard as a lot of big players are trying to play catch up in just acquiring some of the companies out there to get in this space. So we'll see how it does play out. I mean, there's very few crypto companies out there that have publicly traded stocks related to them. and Coinbase is one of the big ones. So that's why it's doing well, as Bitcoin's price has been doing well, and its earnings had been doing well. And I guess this last quarter underperformed. But I think Coinbase is going to continue to grow their client base and continue to make revenues on it. So they're in a good field with a good model. They will lose some competitors, I think, under Trump. Under Gensler, they really flourished because Coinbase had pretty much the only game in town for most U.S. investors being able to get into crypto. So they will face stiffer competition, as I think the SEC gives greater clarity, allowing competitors like Binance and others to really enter the U.S. markets in a meaningful way. But I think the pot is going to get a whole lot larger. Even though they'll lose some of the slice of the pie, I think the pot gets much larger. So I expect with crypto going crazy too, emotionally, because it's something people can invest in with stock money and they're more familiar with stocks. I think Coinbase will be something they invest in. Now, am I going to buy it? No. Do I like it for buying? I don't even know what the market cap is, so I can't make a meaningful determination on whether they're undervalued or not. So for me, it's just a wait. All right. Let's see what else we got. I guess it's XRP.
Yeah. So XRP upward trend, break out from this triangular constriction was a bullish sign, and it's matched its past all-time high. Consolidating off that, obviously profit taking short terms happened and things have kind of cooled off a little bit, but I don't think a lot has really changed structurally. The trend is still up, and I can't justify this as a top. It's too short a time frame and price action. It's in Elliott wave terms, it's made a three-wave correction, 1, 2, 3. So that could be the end of that, and then it should start to move higher, which it looks like it's trying to do. So overall, it still looks like a buy. I know it's a difficult thing to say on something that's got such a big market cap, and it's something that's so elevated. Obviously doesn't guarantee it that it's will go higher, but that is the trend. And if I can't find a top, I have to go with that trend. The break over this level, this 340, and the rejection at wherever that high is, 369, that's a little disappointing, but that's in the context of altcoins that are some of much lower levels and not really showing any sign of strength. So, it's fair that people are taking profit on it, I guess, but that doesn't negate the upward trend. And if more join this kind of movement, then we'll see an extension of this bull market. It'll be a confirmation of a broader bull market, which would be a very good sign. Things that have moved first should continue to move higher, and other things play catch up. Of course, that ebbs and flows. When everything's running hot, the ones that have moved a long way can be sold and look for other things that haven't moved at all. But for the moment, the trend is still bullish. So I would say I'd be going with that. So it's a buy.
I was just doing a little bit of research. So call it a buy. I like XRP a lot. I like the fundamentals on it are really curious, and it's hard to tell exactly what this is going to do. So the predictability is hard. XRP, I believe a lot of the financial systems are being built on XRP. Now, a lot of that information isn't well publicized, and perhaps it's not well publicized on purpose, but you can find videos and other discussions by high-level individuals from governments around the world talking about XRP, the new financial rails being built on XRP. And so you have to do a lot of digging. So it's not commonly known. Another thing that's not commonly known is that the market cap of XRP back in 2017 exceeded Bitcoin's market cap ever so briefly. Most people don't know that XRP went to number one. exceeded Bitcoin's market cap. We often think as Bitcoin as the big daddy and that nothing's market cap will ever compare to Bitcoin's market cap. And that's probably not true. And historically, that hasn't been true. XRP exceeded it back in early 2018. And in the run-up, as Bitcoin's price was pulling back, XRP had a peak in early January 2018 and exceeded Bitcoin's market cap. Now, it's actually higher than the market cap was back then, interestingly enough. So even though the price was at 330, here it went to 390 or something? No. It says showing 345. I think it went a little bit higher than the chart is showing here. But there's more tokens in circulation, so therefore a higher market cap. Curious, I wonder if the market cap is going to exceed Bitcoin's in the future. Let's see, Bitcoin's market cap is it's almost 2.3 trillion, and XRP is 177 billion. So it would need about a 15x, little under a 15x to exceed what Bitcoin's market cap is now. I think as it goes public knowledge that a lot of the payment rails are built on XRP, the future that XRP possibly has an amazing upside, even though the market cap is so high. I have a hard time judging probabilities because there's not much to look at for this. But yeah, I still think it's going to happen, even though I don't have a lot to look at. But I don't have an idea on what the probability of that would be. So we'll see how it does play out. I own some XRP. I wish I owned a whole lot more than what I have, but I own some. And I know a lot of my Rainmaker audience, especially those in the private Discord, have it. We've had extensive discussions over the last year and a half about what's going on with the ISO 20020 coins, the new standard for the payment rails. And XRP is rolling that, as well as Hedera and Stellar and some of the other projects included in that, including Cardano. If you join the Patreon, that gives you access to the Discord where those discussions have been. I know a lot of my audience holds significant XRP that they were able to get back before it went expensive back here when it was trading at much, much cheaper prices. All right. That was XRP. Let's see what else we got. Abe wants us to look at Bitcoin's dominance. Oh, and I forgot VPAD. Why don't we take a look at VPAD really quick?
Yeah.
And we'll look at Bitcoin dominance.
Yeah. Okay. So VPAD on TradingView came out with this that seems to not be up to date. So then I went over to CoinGecko when I got this. There may be more than one, but is this the right one? Is it VLaunch?
Yeah, VLaunch. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So it's migrated from an older ETH contract to a new one. So there's not a lot of data really. We've got a bit, but not as much as I would like. And there seems to be a kind of death and revival. This was clearly heading, in the wrong direction, as it were, and no justification for buying it at all, except the last, what would this be? Is that weekly chart? Yeah, I guess it is. So the last kind of few weeks, we're getting some bullish price action, which is great. And it's made some inroads into the prior trend, which is, really good. So I don't know, clean slate, maybe. I'm not really sure what suddenly happened here. As long as we can justify this trend, i.e., I could put an upward trend line below the lows. It's difficult to do on these charts. That's why I prefer to have it on the TradingView chart. But if we were to draw an upward trend line from these lows, I could justify buying it with a stop below. The caveat is also that the company's or the coin's been through this upheaval, and why was that necessary, and all sorts of questions about that. So a strong element of caution's got to be applied here for me. Also, given the fact that, you know, we got a bit of data, but could possibly want a bit more. I'm just trying to look at levels where it could find some resistance. Well, this high here, what's that, over 5 cents? Did it really do that? I don't know. See, this is the trouble with some of these charts. You're not sure if that's just a spike of bad data or whether it really did trade there. But if we look at the open level, which would be correct, then approaching that open level there did seem to act as, if I move that out of the way, you can see that the bar opened, and then the next bar shows that that was proper resistance, and then we got this other breakout. So this zone here, that where I'm trying to show with my mouse, that has got some resistance, which is close to where it is now. So we'll see if that slows it down. But overall, it's moving in the right direction. So that's fairly significant, the fact that it's been up, you know, from this low. It's moved quite a long way in percentage terms. So you got to allow for a pullback or, you know, sideways move from there. But, you know, I want to go with upward trends, and there's only certain amount of time that you can leave a trend before you join it, because, you know, what do you do? Wait for it to go all the way up here? You could do, but that's why I think perhaps a small position would be justified with a stop below the upward trend line. So I'd have to say it's a buy, but I would be very cautious, because I do want to know why these things have changed and why I can't get a trading view chart and all those other things. So some due diligence has to be done on it.
Yeah. So V-Launch is a launch pad, and launch pads are absolutely destroyed during the bear market because people aren't really trying hard to get into new projects that are launching. Now, I haven't stayed up to date with which projects they've launched. I've been in a little bit of communications with them. This was founded by one of my favorite crypto personalities, Crypto. And the reason I like Crypto is he used to, when I was brand new to crypto, late 2017, actually did fundamental analysis on altcoins, the kind of research that I absolutely love. And like 6 months later, he stopped covering it because it was really, really hard for him to grow an audience by covering undervalued altcoins that nobody else was talking about. And he started just covering on a daily basis what Bitcoin is doing. And he's become really wealthy from his altcoin investments. And yeah, but he's one of my favorite people to look at. He's really good at economics. And one of the people I was looking at when I was brand new, thinking, I want to understand everything this guy does. So he founded V-Launch with one of his friends that owns or has a YouTube channel as well. And they were extremely well connected with projects and launching good projects. But their token price in the bear market has been absolutely devastated and punished down to a $4.3 million market cap. And that's after this recent run that's taken it almost 10x from these lows. So we'll see how it does. I own a little bit of this and holding on. I haven't been dollar cost averaging it because I'm in a bunch of other ones. It's probably an amazing buy at this, but I haven't stayed up to date on how they're doing, what kind of launches they're having in general. I do like the team behind it, and I think they'll probably flourish in the upcoming bull run. So we'll see. I would rate it a buy. Well, I'm kind of rated as a wait, only because it just ran up so much, and I like things that are like noticeably cheap. And so it just had this big run up to 1.5 cents. I would wait and see if it pulls back more. I just want to buy what I know is cheaper. Even though it's at a $4.36 million market cap, a project like this in a bull market could go to a $500 million market cap, maybe $1 billion market cap, but it might only become a couple $100 million market cap. So I just want to buy it as cheap as possible, and I suspect it'll get a little bit cheaper. So just give that a wait. Let's take a look at Bitcoin's dominance chart.
Yeah, this is interesting, Abe. This is a good one to look at. So that the move into ETH was brought about by this correction, which has completed a double top. It's also hit and is traded near this 60% level, which was an important level on the way up, and it's now kind of playing near it on the way down. As much as I can say from the way this is trading here, and I could be wrong, it feels to me like this is going to break lower, which is a bullish sign for altcoins, and would suggest that we do see more of the same, like i.e. more of ETH going up. Whether that means Bitcoin coming down or just treading water, like we said last time, I'm not sure. But I think this is this could become far more interesting as the next few weeks play out. That test of 60% is a huge level. So if we see it break below there, we could get some sharp moves. But as I say, I like the way it's moved really fast and then it's just stayed within this tight range. That's normally an indicator that it wants to continue down. So I think that's a good sign for altcoins.
Yeah, I'd say it's a good sign for altcoins too. And I wanted to give some historical perspective on this. This was what it did last bear market into the bull run. So when the bear market, Bitcoin's dominance goes absolutely crazy. So 2019, 2020. And then you see it really peak out end of December of 2020. And Bitcoin's price had been rising and rising and rising. And altcoins had, for the most part, gotten cheaper. And even though Bitcoin's price continued to run and actually peaked in March, you do see that it's like the overall dominance fell from 73% to 61%. As ETH and some of the other altcoins ran, they ran a lot more than Bitcoin. So that's why its dominance was falling here, is because the other ones were running by quite a bit more than Bitcoin was, even though Bitcoin was still running. And that may be what's happening here. Notice how high Bitcoin's dominance was this first time. There weren't very many meaningful altcoins out there. And so the dominance was quite high, 98%. It never reached quite as high, going to 73% at the peak and then falling. But there's more substantive altcoins out there. And so I suspect it's not going to hit these 73% levels again, that probably it peaked at 66%. And that I wouldn't be surprised to continue to see dominance stay the same or even fall further as some of the altcoins, ETH and other large caps, and even some small caps run in the coming month to 2 months. So I do think Bitcoin dominance has peaked for the cycle. Great suggestion. Okay. Hello, I caught your show last week where you covered Strike. Could be interested if Paul had more data on his thoughts. Instead of CoinGecko, try Tap Tools, and it's number 2 on the list. Thanks.
What is Tap Tools? Is it a website?
I don't know. It seems like it's a website.
Okay. I mean, for the moment, I think it's the one with the $sign, isn't it? I remember that much from when we last looked at it. Although I can't get a trading view chart. I mean, this is showing a good enough kind of approximation or indication of where it is right now and what the price action's doing. We did get a break into a new high, which was good, but that has been met with a correction. So this area here could be building up for a top. I'm not sure yet. So my short-term call would be a wait, because we've got to see how this plays out. Now, it's not a confirmed top. It may end up being a continuation pattern, but the heat has definitely come off this trend. And while it's doing that, it will be a wait, especially seeing as it's run quite far ahead of everything else. I can't remember what this actually does. Could you remind me? Because it's
I think for allowing trading of futures and perpetual futures on Cardano's blockchain. But you're right to be cautious. When the general trend isn't running yet and something takes off like this, it tends to pull back. It doesn't run for forever, and we might be seeing a topping pattern. So I was able to find it on Tap Tools. This is what it looks like. And so it does have some pretty good charting data.
Yeah. So I've clicked on what is supposed to be their website, and I've got this, which is interesting because it's
might be showing a gold price. Oh, what is that? No, that's ADA versus USD.
Yeah. So not sure why that comes up as a default when you click on. Maybe that's a problem with CoinGecko and its link, because I just clicked there.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, this is good enough for now, because what we're seeing here is, so look, you got this upward trend correction, and that correction, one red bar, green, 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 one red bar, green, green. Now we've got 3 in the correction, and straight off the high, it's is it going to be a double top? I don't know. I don't think so, because we're still in this crypto bullish environment. The macro environment's bullish. I know that doesn't necessarily mean that all things are going to run, and it doesn't guarantee it's going to move higher, but it seems to be in an interesting space, which is why it's moved so far. And I don't think that's going to change unless they do something in the business that's a misstep. They're in the right space to potentially do very well moving forward. We've looked at different areas and how they've run and how they haven't, in terms of gaming and things like that, and how they turn around. But the what's clear is when all the markets are running higher, interest rates are falling, and all that sort of stuff's going on, there's more liquidity coming in. It should benefit companies and also projects that are associated with that. Now, some are yet to run and are kind of bubbling up, and some have seen that potential and have perhaps discounted it a bit already. But maybe this got a little bit too far and it needs to consolidate. But the area should still be an interesting one going forward. So I think I'd be waiting for the technical pattern anyway. We haven't seen a sell signal from a technical pattern point of view, but we have seen enough to say that it will probably consolidate now. And again, this is one that we're going to have to come back to see how it plays out. Now, if this does go into something interesting, into like a very bullish technical pattern, we'll see it. So we will come back to it. Just ask for it if we don't look at it in the next kind of couple of weeks or so. But yeah, for me, I'd have to say that I think it's a wait at this point, just because it's in this consolidation.
Yeah, we're not in the full-blown everything's going to run phase yet. And maybe if we enter that very soon, this continues. But if I were holding Strike, I would be taking massive profits on it. Why? Because it's 10x up when everything else isn't. And so if you are able to harvest 10x gains and roll that into something else that does a 50x from there in the greater bull run, then you get a 500x return. Now, maybe in the greater bull run, this does much bigger things and it goes another 10x from here, and you'd be up a total of 100x, which is pretty amazing gains. Maybe it does a 20x from here in the greater bull run and you're up 200x. That's still not as great as the 500x if you had rolled it into something else that just did a 50x from its lower prices, because it hasn't run at all. So they've realized some of their value, and a lot of their value proposition is now priced in where it was not priced in. And as this went online, people started to use it, then it starts to become priced in for where things are at. And so you've captured some of the value of the gains already. Like DEVVE, the reason I'm so bullish is a lot of people are unaware of what they do and it's not priced in yet. But if DEVVE were to suddenly go 50x, would I be taking some profits out of there, even though I believe it has much higher potential than that? Absolutely, I would, especially if everything else was still really, really cheap, because I could roll some of those gains into something else that hasn't moved yet and hopefully capture a much larger overall return. So Strike, cool what they're doing. I'm bullish on the Cardano blockchain ecosystem projects like Strike. I'm just concerned when it's run, and most things on Cardano itself haven't run yet, that this is a take profit zone for me. So it's literally a sell. And I'd probably be selling half and realizing some of those gains, because you haven't made anything if you don't actually cash some in. I wouldn't be cashing them in and buying a Porsche. No, the timing's amazing to be buying things that are still cheap. I'd just be harvesting to roll into other things that I have really strong potential, even if I had bigger price targets for where I thought Strike would do. So I hope some of you absolutely crushed it on this one. Carlos says, speaking of Launchpad Sports, has found a bottom and rallied a bit. Good to hear. Sven says, Crypto Rain, just want to say your interview with the blonde lady. The blonde lady is Laura. Her last name is very hard to pronounce, but from gate.com. Now gate.io is now gate.com. And their venture arm. So they have a venture capital arm that they invest in early stage projects. And I found her very, very smart. So at first, when I was lining up the interview, I did some research on her, and I liked that she was on their venture capital arm. That was interesting to me, but it wasn't until I talked to her that I found I really like her experience level and her insights. She's been in the crypto space for 9 years and been investing in early stage businesses that whole time. So she's got 9 years experience in early stage investing. Her insights, this is the kind of person you want to learn their insights from, because they've had a whole bunch of investments go bad and they've had some go good. And so you can leverage their experience to become a better investor yourself. If you haven't seen that video, go back and check it out with Laura from gate.com. It was great. Sven says, thanks for the great interview. I found her insights amazing. Very pleased that I did go ahead and book her. I wasn't going to book her because I was like, I don't care about having someone from Exchange on, but when they're saying they wanted to talk about their venture arm and investments in the overall crypto space, I was like, that is very interesting to me. So yes. I wonder why VV keeps delaying the announcement. There are some reasons why VV is delaying the announcement. They have to wait for something else. So if it were up to them, they would already have done the announcement. There are some things behind the scenes they have to wait for. VV Zombie asks, can we take a look at Earth 2's essence? Sure. Let's do that. Let me make sure I didn't miss any. Dr. of Stuff was joining us. Good to have you here. And yeah, we will take a look at Banker. Let's look at Earth 2 Essence, and then we'll take a look at Banker, only because I didn't see your suggestion till after.
Oh, it's ESS, is it?
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to find. You can only find it on one of the. No, you won't find it on that. I think CoinGecko is the only thing I've been able to find it on. Earth 2 Essence on CoinGecko. This what I'm looking at is this.
Okay. Oh, this one, right? ESS. Okay. Yeah. Well, we got the first wave and the correction. So this is where the kind of rubber hits the road. It should now rally from here. Otherwise, problems. So we've had the first wave up, correction. Where is it going to find support? In order for us to draw an upward trend line, we need this to then start printing some green candles, not just because of people who are long it want to make profits, but from a point of view of the technicals, we were going up this trend line and it's now broken that. So we've got a new trend line or trend rate that it's forming, or hopefully forming, but we can't draw a line in until that's confirmed. So what I'm basically saying here is I can't I can't draw a bullish trend line until we see it print and hold an important support point, which means that I'm going to have to wait until it does that. Now, you could argue the breakout started where that started, it's come back to. That can sometimes be a good support point. So maybe naturally we'll see a rally. We've already seen it come off that low, but not print a green candle as yet. So that's showing some support here, but not enough to change completely the trend, which is what we want to see. So now that was a good run, and where it hit resistance on this chart was, where a lot of activity had been on the downside here. But it's a tricky one, this, because that was such a strong downward trend, and that was such a important change of dynamics. But it's reversed it almost as quickly as it's done it. So that's obviously disappointing. But the next phase needs to be technically justified, that's for sure. And until it turns around, I can't actually draw a trend line or justify it with a pattern. So it's going to have to be a wait.
Yeah. Let's take a look at it. I like cheap, and it's nice and cheap. There is no pattern yet that it's turned around, like Paul is saying. So he doesn't buy, but he buys based on different metrics that I do. And I like that it's right near this low that's put in. So it would just be based on what I feel the value proposition is. I think ETH2's Essence token is going to do good in a bull run. It's come back off, not quite to the lows of before, but close at 3.1 cents. It's probably a really good buy. I'm going to give it a buy for me. Just Paul and I buy based off different metrics. But he's right. There's no sign that this is yet turned around. And I buy cheap, hoping that in the greater period, when the bull run comes in, that it goes massively up there. Me buying now on ETH2 Essence, I don't know if it's going to get even cheaper. It probably will here. So I wouldn't load the boats with it. But if I were buying this, I'd put some money into ETH2's Essence token. Then I'd wait and see what it does. And gets cheaper, put more in. That's how I roll. All right, let's look at Doctor of Stuff's suggestion. Here we go.
Yeah. So initially I looked at this chart on TradingView, and hang on, why has it gone to an hour? Yeah, there wasn't a lot to see. I was like, okay, what's going on here? And then went to CoinGecko. I can see why you want to look at it. It's definitely far more interesting. Now, this is a great chart. It's a sort of chart, obviously, I would want to see not this late into the breakout, because look, I don't want to make it sound like, oh, okay, it's in an upward trend, so I would have bought it. But I'm sure you've heard me say enough that when a market is approaching a previous high, that's when it becomes really interesting to me. And it hits it once and twice, and then played around the high, and then started to accelerate. So this area here was the prime zone for my attention. And we've gone 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks and got some bullish price action following that, So having bought here, I would be looking to lighten up a certain amount in order to sort of lock in some profits, and then maybe move stops up to represent a stop loss in case things get a bit crazy. Would I buy it here? I mean, I can't short it, is how I would approach this. Do I short this market? No. But this is falling into the category of one where the trend rate is getting too fast. And when that happens, yeah, it's great. It can continue, but it can also mean the opposite comes around very, very quickly, where it kind of V's up and then comes straight down. Now, the caveat to that is that that's what everybody fears of upward trends. And that's why not many people actually join what are very good upward trends. So it's difficult to say, especially when we don't really have a lot of price action. So if I was forced to do something here, believe it or not, I would buy it, because the trend is up and that is the direction. But in reality, you know, it hasn't really got enough data for me to be that confident. And I would be quite cautious with that buy. It wouldn't be a big buy. And I'd also feel like I'd missed the boat, not missed the boat, but I'd missed what I would really be looking for in terms of the breakout point, which is here. And that's where I'd be most comfortable sitting with a position from here. And you might say, yeah, of course you would, because it's, that's much lower. But really it's not because of that. It's more because of the way it's trading technically around that level. Now, if this goes into a consolidation and forms some form of technical pattern, then I'd be happy to buy it again and then go with that trend. So so for me, it's a very cautious buy with all the caveats that I've just said, taken into consideration. But I see why you think it's one that we should look at. It's just a shame we didn't catch it a bit earlier. And I'm not saying that's definitely not your fault, because it wouldn't look to that interesting at this point to, I guess, anyone else other than the technical analysts. But now it's run, of course it's going to be pretty much on the radar, which is why it's come up in this way. But very interesting. Thanks for pointing it out. And I think we have looked at this before. It seems to ring a bell. What do these guys do again?
Yeah, I don't think we've looked at this one before.
I don't know why.
This is what they do. Trade with Banker, your friendly AI-powered crypto companion. What can I do for you? Give me market data. Bridge $5 of ETH on basic Solana. So it looks like an AI companion. Then TRX deployer on $5 of Banker. So it's like you can send their developer $5. See, interesting. Trade in private and terminal. So it gives you an idea of how you can use it. It looks like they have a Banker bot on Twitter. Give me analysis of Banker in 5 minute over last week using 1 hour intervals. Interesting. So is this something that I think the market cap continues to go crazy on? Probably not. This would be harvest zone for me. Now, this one isn't on the radar. I don't know who the team behind this is. We're going to see a lot of AI companions come out from smaller projects, leveraging existing AIs that are out there. So I don't know enough about this to say I'd be interested in buying, especially at these prices after it's just run. For me, it'd probably be like a sell and roll into some other things. And maybe I'm selling prematurely, but I don't know anything about the team behind this. And that's what concerns me, is I would feel after a big run like this is definitely not a buy when I see this kind of parabolic going move. Now, it's a parabolic move. It looks like it's gone up substantially. It's, I think, only 3x'd. So it's not really, really high. That means it's gone from like a $25 million market cap to a $75 million market cap. From here, it's gone a lot higher. That's maybe a 10 or 15x from way back in December of last year. But you just need to know who the team is behind this, what they're doing. Let's see. Check out their Twitter. 58K followers. Interesting. Kind of fun, simple graphics. I don't know. I just need to know more about this. AI agents are coming for DeFi. 2 standouts: Moon, Wells, Mamo, and crowd favorite Banker. Interesting. Bankless is a really big name in crypto coverage, and I really like the videos they do. So if they're talking about it, then maybe it's got a lot more upside to go from the 3x it just made. Interesting. That's probably why Doctor of Stuff, he does look at fundamentals. So if he's talking about this, there's probably something substantive to it. Just unfamiliar with it. Interesting. I can't buy after it just 3x'd. Not when there's so many other good deals out there that haven't. Interesting one to have on my radar. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Paul, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, nearly 2 hours. So that's been a bit of a long one, this one.
Yes.
A lot to go through. Thanks for the picks. Thanks for Tap Tools as well. That's an interesting website. I'm going to keep an eye on it.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, guys.
The crypto market still has lots of room to run. It's going to be exciting 2025. So we're in August, and apparently I was wrong about specifically August in the bull, in the 4-year cycle during the bull run has performed better than I was aware of. So both 2021 and 2017. So maybe this August has some room to run. Now, it is interesting that both in 2021 and 2017, August ran quite well, but then pulled back mid-September. Often I think of, even in bull runs, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Maybe that's what's going to happen. Maybe Bitcoin breaks to higher highs, maybe ETH and some other altcoins run. And then there's a pullback, and then maybe leading into a much bigger run following that. It's fun to see how this will play out. Likely a lot of these altcoins, they're still way down and they have a lot of room to go. And that's what I'm invested in just sharing with you, not what for you guys to buy, but what I'm buying, why I like it, why I'm buying it, what I think for my own investment, the risks and the potential returns are, and just sharing with you the research that I was already doing for myself anyway, and sharing with you my thoughts for my own investment on it. So I'm doing the research anyway. If you haven't already, join our Patreon to get access to the private Discord where much deeper discussions happen. Sometimes there's some behind the scenes deals that happen there. Sometimes there's other things that happen there that can be quite exciting. I know when I was first launching the YouTube channel and stuff, I did have access to a deal that was not generally available, and about 8 people I knew got involved with that as well. And it literally made them millions of dollars over 3 years. And there's been some other deals in the meantime that really only that private community gets access to when they come up. And sometimes it's things at a discount. Sometimes it's things that just everyone else doesn't have access to. All right, guys, have a great week. I'll see my private community on Friday for our Friday Rainmaker chat. But otherwise, for the rest of you, I will see you next week. See you soon.